2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Welcome back to 7 Essentials. My name is Zachary Conan, and today we are going over the 7 most essential romantic films of all time. Film is a wonderful place. To quote Proust, love is a striking example of how little reality actually means to us. And romantic films transcend even idealized forms. I believe there are 2 primary things that you could showcase emotionally through film, and one is love, and the other is animosity. So let's focus on romantic cinema. At number 7, we have Before Sunrise. Of course, Before Sunrise is part of a trilogy directed by Richard Linklater. First one came out in 1995, Before Sunset in 2004, and Before Midnight in 2013. Now, these films are pretty remarkable. It has that Linklater style of set in a real time, in a real space that actually has time limits or time constraints. They were usually following the continuation of a long conversation. And since it's written by Linklater, you do have like some sort of pseudo-intellectual, pseudo-emotionality every once in a while, which is maybe why it ranks at number 7 as opposed to higher up. But number 7 is still incredibly essential. It's probably one of the more essential examples of the independent American attitude on film. And of course, some of the conversations they get into are wonderful, and the chemistry between Hawk and Julie it is just phenomenal. There's a reason why film Twitter, why people my age tend to worship the film, and it's because it really challenges their own concepts of love and makes them understand the reality just below the surface of all this romanticism. And Linklater does a very good job. I actually think that Before Sunrise is probably his best film. The only one you could argue for in place of it would be Dazed and Confused, in my opinion. And Before Sunrise is just so warm. It's so lovely. It's irreplaceable when you get down to it. At number 6, we have Jules and Jim, directed by Francois Truffaut. This is considered one of the greatest films of all time, so maybe I shouldn't have to go into it too much here. But this film is about a love triangle between 2 friends and Catherine, played by Jean Moreau. And what's so good about this one is that Truffaut was a romanticist. He was sentimental. He was basically the Proust of film, of the filmic landscape. And you could get people like Jean-Luc Godard and myself sometimes. I'm more of a romanticist than Godard was when it came to film, who charge him with being over-sentimental, being over-romantic, being how his films have an intrinsic and inherent unrealism to them that distract from truthfulness, from being genuine. And I think that Truffaut would obviously argue with that in the idea that film is the platform for the idealized form. And Jules and Jim is nothing if not a love letter to Jean Moreau, to the woman, to the goddess, to the perfect being that she was. You cannot watch Jules and Jim and not fall in love, absolutely in love with Jean Moreau, the woman, the icon, the symbol. Okay? She is so fucking beautiful and perfect and sexy and complicated and renegade and rebellious and passionate. I love her because of Jules and Jim. Francois Truffaut did the impossible. The thing that you should do when you're making a romantic film, you shouldn't just depict 2 characters who are infatuated with each other. You have to make your audience clinically obsessed with the point of affection, with the source of attraction and passion itself. You have to make the audience fall in love with the characters in the film. And Truffaut and Jean Moreau succeeded in that. I am also hopelessly and desperately obsessed with that woman. At number 5, we have Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. I believe this came out in 2004, and my God, it's beautiful. The first time I ever saw it, I was 14 exactly. I got to see it in theaters, and I grew up in Vermont, and there was only one theater in town, and it would get one movie a week. No lie, no exaggeration. This is true. And I had just broken up with this girl, and I believe I had gotten super high, and just, you know what? Fine, I'll go see Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, man. Go see a Jim Carrey movie. Only I had no concept of who Charlie Kaufman or Michel Gondry, the filmmakers, were before I actually saw the film. And that film kind of ruined me at that point. It is so inventive, and the Kaufman script is so complex, so rich, so incredibly private and personal, yet malleable. Everybody can latch onto the ideas and the concepts of Eternal Sunshine, even though the concepts and the ideas that Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind dives into and explores and investigates are some of the most deeply private and personal ones that you could ever imagine. It's very interesting because Kaufman, as a screenwriter, goes very deep into the human condition and the human spirit and the ethos of the human character. And somehow, even in our most private recesses, as far down as you can go, we're still intensely relatable with each other. That's fantastic. And my God, marry me, Kate Winslet. Marry me right now, Kate Winslet. I am ready. Let's go. Also, sloppy editing, but it has one of my favorite beginnings in all of film. Elijah Wood peering in through the window. What are you doing here? Fucking pure cinema, man. It's so good. At number 4, we have Gone with the Wind. We have Gone with the Wind, who I credit entirely to Selznick. That's David Selznick's masterpiece right there. Gone with the Wind is a phenomenal piece of romantic cinema. Now, it's become cool during the last 10 years to kind of sweep this film under the rug. You don't really see it pop up on too many lists anymore when it comes to the greatest the cinema has to offer. And that's a fucking tragedy, because Gone with the Wind is one of the greatest things that old Hollywood has to offer at all. We have Vivien Leigh and Clark Gable in kind of the most selfish, most manipulative, and most empty love that the screen has ever seen, and somehow it is still so emblematic of this passion that all of us seek out. And you also have Olivia de Havilland and shit. I knew his name. It was Leslie Howard. I just was afraid I was going to say Leslie Nelson or something. I was afraid I was going to say the fucking guy from the Naked Gun series. I knew his name. It was Leslie Howard. But you have Olivia de Havilland and Leslie Howard on the other end. They have a far more pure love that Scarlett can't help but try to taint and try to corrupt. But it's perfect. And also it works poetically as well. Obviously, the deeper contextual reading of Gone with the Wind as Clark Gable represents the North, a northern sensibility when it comes to its southern mentality. And of course, it's set during the Civil War, so it's about the North trying to romance, appease, and satisfy, and understand the South. But the South is so immature, so unsophisticated, so relentlessly oblique and difficult, that the North at the end just has to go, you know what, frankly, I don't give a damn. And then the Reconstructionist era moves in and all sorts of things like that. Carpetbaggers, all sorts of things. It actually works on fundamentally on so many different poetic and beautiful American levels, especially when it comes to romanticizing history, romanticizing this concept of our shared idealized image of our shared existence within the past. It is fucking phenomenal. And Gone with the Wind, I think, is perfect. There are so many layers to it. It is grand. It is opulent. and it's nearly perfect. It's nearly flawless, which is incredible given its runtime and given the amount of absolute buffoonery that was going on during the making of the film. That film shouldn't have been able to have been made in the first place, and yet it is a complete and utter masterpiece. And Gone with the Wind is also something that makes me feel deeply romanced by the filmmakers, and in turn, I feel deeply romantic about my own, my own idealized version of a certain someone. At number 3, we have F.W. Murnau's Sunrise, the crown jewel of romantic silent cinema. This film is tender, it's heartbreaking, it's understanding. It is, it's very interesting because it's German expressionism, but told through a very passionate kind of lens. And it's impossible not to feel so many different things while watching this film. It's obviously Murnau's best film, and it's one of the greatest films of the silent age. Sunrise is booming with life. It is just teeming with ferocious passion. But most of all, like I said, it's probably the most understanding film on this list. That's a film that you watch and you feel understands you. You feel like you could share secrets with that piece of art, and that it can reciprocate that action, and it will tell you deep secrets as well. And you become locked in this deeply intimate exchange with the film. Sunrise is brilliant. If you haven't seen Sunrise, make it your life's mission to watch that film. It's incredible. At number 2, we have 1991's My Own Private Idaho, directed by Gus Van Sant, and starring Keanu Reeves and River Phoenix as the lovers in question. This is not only what I believe is the greatest piece of queer cinema in existence, it's one of the absolute best romantic films ever made, and one of the top 5 punk rock films ever made. It's obviously about drifters, about male prostitutes in the Pacific Northwest. It's gut-wrenching. I watched it all the time when I was in high school. I thought it was so brilliant, so daring. I thought that it was so symbolically valuable to me. I'm a huge River Phoenix stan. I love this man. I love him to death. He's an irresistible presence on screen. It doesn't matter your sexuality. It doesn't matter anything like that. I am obsessed with River Phoenix. Just his presence, his body, his delivery. It's also tragic. It's also romanta-tragic, which is my favorite kind of tragic and my favorite kind of romantic. Romanta-tragic. I absolutely love him to death, and his best work was in My Own Private Idaho. No question. The amount of emotion, and in some cases non-emotion, the amount of emotional and romantic dispossession that he was able to express was out of this world, was something that I've still never seen again. And it's so sad to see the world agree that they'd rather see their faces fill with flies, all when I'd want to keep white roses in there. Gus Van Sant used to be a filmmaker that really captured the have-nots, the lonely, the if-onlys of an entire generation of queer kids, or just any. Look at Drugstore Cowboy. Just he captured the lifestyle that I was living, you know. And of course, I wasn't watching these films in the early '90s. Obviously, I was watching these films in the mid to late 2000s, and what he was able to capture in films like My Own Private Idaho and Drugstore Cowboy and Mala Noche is this undying, unending, unchanging, youthful, nihilistic, but romantic determination. It's just romantic tragic. I should stop trying to think of other words. There is no greater romantic tragic filmmaker than Gus Van Sant, than an early Gus Van Sant. If I view love in any sort of specific way, I view it through the lens of My Own Private Idaho. I view it through the lens of romantic tragedy, through the lens of an absurdly defined freedom, through a life that is so absurdly free that my very existence is an act of rebellion, and that's what My Own Private Idaho gives to me. It is absurdly, absurdly masterful. It's one of the most essential films of all time, not just romantic cinema. It is one of the greatest films ever made. There is a short list of films that have actually completely shifted my worldview and changed my life, that actually sunk deep inside and rearranged things within my spirit. And My Own Private Idaho might be at the very top of life-changing films. And I can only thank Keanu Reeves, Gus Van Sant, and the beautiful River Phoenix for that. I look like an idiot. We've made it to number 1, which is 1934's Lot a Lot, directed by Jean Vigo. This film compositionally is second to absolutely none. It is incredibly well composed. There's hints of German expressionism. There are slightly surrealist motifs. There's a new filmic language also being built on top of these pre-existing formats, which can only be called a wild kindness. Jean Vigo was an anarchist. He was an anarchist filmmaker, and this comes out within his work. And Lot a Lot is the most free that you could possibly imagine a romantic film. If an anarchist could give you the greatest gift of love, he would give you the closest thing to freedom that he could cultivate. He would give you the closest thing to freedom that he possibly could. And Lot a Lot is as close to free as any film possibly can be. Any film is going to be contrived, practiced, staged. That is the methodology of the art form. Jean Vigo believes in this wild kindness where there's an unpredictability, even within banality. That there's this unexpected virtue in perfect romance, which leads to a freedom, which leads to characters being able to explore other genre types and other tropes, which allows characters to break the well-established rules of their own themes, to become animated, to become surrealist, to become dreamlike. And in his eyes, freedom, no matter how contrived it appears, is completely truthful and completely romantic if it comes from a place of authenticity. Lot a Lot is, yes, simply the greatest romantic film ever made. If you have not seen Lot a Lot, oh my god, remedy that immediately and then go fall in love. Lot a Lot's beautiful. Lot a Lot's wonderful. I still can't get over it, and hopefully I never will. Well, that wraps it up. Those were my 7 essential romantic films of all time. Now, the honorable mentions list would just be so long to be unnecessary to even include here. I just hope that you enjoy this video. If you haven't subscribed yet, definitely do so to keep up with more content like this. I love romantic films. I know that most of the films on this list were romantic tragic. But that's my own personal, my own private worldview when it comes to love. I believe that everything in life should be a romantic tragic. I'm not so much of a romanticist that I don't believe that tragedy needs to exist in order to even understand what romance can do, what the kind of space that romance can occupy inside of our hearts. Oh boy, this was a fun video to do. Thank you very much for watching. In the comments, leave some of your favorite romantic films. And I'm not just, I should rephrase that, not your favorite ones, but more specifically, and I think more interestingly, what are the films that made you understand what love was? Either what it could be on screen or what it could be in your own actual lived existence. What filmmakers made you fall in love with their muses? What filmmakers inspired you to ask that person out, finally, after all these years of long-harbored emotions? Or even what filmmaker reminded you how much you have already and how you need to go and rekindle that love with your significant other. You need to go and either win her back or go back to your complacent existence and be like, you know what, we don't have to be complacent. We can be romantic tragic. We can be unpredictable, unexpected, if only for a short while. Thank you guys so much for watching. Love you guys. I love that I'm getting some new subscribers. Hope you guys stick around. I hope I hold your attention. Thank you very much. This is Zachary Conan. This was 7 Essentials, Romantic Cinema. And go out and fall in love. That's my advice.